In just 9 seasons, Calvin Johnson became one of the most unstoppable receivers in NFL history. But after the 2015 season, at just 30 years old, he shocked the league and retired. Not because of age, not even just because of injuries, but because he felt betrayed by his team and by the NFL itself. So why did Megatron really walk away? Long before he was Megatron, Calvin Johnson was a high school legend at Sandy Creek in Georgia, a two-sport athlete playing football and baseball. He was not known just for his freakish athleticism, but his character and work ethic. He was a 4-star recruit and was ranked among one of the best receivers in the nation by every major outlet. You would think he would go somewhere like Georgia or Miami, but he committed to Georgia Tech, where he wanted to challenge himself both on the field and in the classroom. But what made this decision interesting is that Tech was a run-heavy offense. They ran a triple option, so why would a receiver go there? But Calvin quickly showed it doesn't matter. At Georgia Tech, Calvin Johnson wasn't just dominant, he was a one-man army in a run-heavy offense. In 3 seasons, he racked up over 2,900 yards receiving and 28 touchdowns. Despite inconsistent quarterback play and constant double coverage, he won the Biletnikoff Award in 2006 as the nation's top receiver, and he was a 2-time All-American, and declared for the NFL Draft as a top prospect. In 2007, the Lions selected him 2nd overall, and Calvin Johnson didn't just live up to the hype, he redefined it. Sitting at 6'5", 237 pounds with 4.3 speed, he wasn't your typical wide receiver, he was a cheat code. Calvin's rookie year he showed flashes, over 750 yards and 4 touchdowns, but Detroit was still a mess, and by 2008, the Lions became the first team in NFL history to go 0-16. He was the only bright spot in a nightmare season, putting up over 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, with Dan Orlovsky and Dante Culpepper at quarterback. Then came a spark. Detroit drafted Matthew Stafford number 1 overall, and slowly, the Stafford-Megatron connection began to take shape. But even with Stafford, the Lions couldn't stay healthy, couldn't protect the quarterback, and couldn't build a run game. From 2009 to 2011, Calvin was putting up elite numbers, including a monster 2011 season with 1,681 yards and 16 touchdowns, but the team around him was still inconsistent. Still, the league noticed. He made his first Pro Bowl in 2010 and was named first team All-Pro in 2011. Calvin Johnson was no longer just a rising star, he was the most feared wide receiver in the game. In 2012, Megatron broke the single-season receiving yard record with 1,964 yards, and he did it while getting double and triple teamed almost every play. In just 9 years, he racked up over 11,000 yards, 83 touchdowns, and respect from every corner in the league. But for all of his dominance, the Lions gave him nothing. From 2007 to 2015, which was Calvin's entire career, the Lions went 54-90, only having 2 winning seasons and 2 playoff appearances along with 0 wins. He endured a terrible 0-16 season in 2008, which was the first time a franchise lost in every game they played in. He also went through 3 head coaches, Rod Marinelli, Jim Schwartz, and Jim Caldwell. Each brought a new system, but none brought sustained success. And the front office, chaotic, constant turnover at GM, questionable draft picks, and no consistent identity. Even after drafting Matthew Stafford in 2009, the team failed to build a complete roster. The offensive line was bad, the run game was non-existent, and the defense was mediocre. Year after year, Calvin did everything, but he had little to no support, and worst of all, the culture didn't demand winning. It tolerated mediocrity. The same franchise that wasted Barry Sanders' career was doing it again, and the pain, it was relentless. Broken fingers, ankle sprains, and knee issues. Calvin played through all of it. He later revealed he was taking painkillers constantly just to function. He could barely walk after games, but he never let it show until it became too much.
Every games where I was out there, I was like, boy, I don't know how I'm gonna make it today. I'm gonna send this prayer up to the Lord, take this pain away and allow my ankles to move.
At one point, I started calling him Scooter because his ankles, there was no flexion. Like, most people's ankles bend, his didn't. They were just kind of stuck like that.
When Calvin retired, the Lions did the unthinkable. They forced him to pay back $1.6 million of his signing bonus. Let that sink in. A Hall of Famer, a generational talent, and his team, the same team he gave everything to, made him give money back on the way out. On March 14, 2012, Johnson signed an 8-year extension for $132 million, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. He retired after the 2015 season, which means he didn't play out the entirety of his contract. Because of this, the Lions forced him to pay back $1.6 million of his signing bonus, which understandably rubbed him the wrong way. To be fair to the Lions, a contract is a contract, so it made sense, but it also made sense for Johnson. He was one of, if not the best player on that team for the majority of his career, and he did his job at a historically high level, but not as long as the Lions wanted him to. The Lions did try to give Johnson his money, but they said they would pay him $500,000 a year for 3 years for appearance fees and $100,000 as a charitable donation. Essentially, they would recoup their money by having Calvin just showing up, and that made Calvin furious. But this isn't the first time the Lions have forced a player to repay their money. For example, Barry Sanders. He signed a 6-year contract and retired 2 years later, and was then forced to pay back around $7 million. This led to a little bit of hostility between the two parties as well, but that beef has since been squashed. If Calvin Johnson had played 5 more healthy seasons, he was on pace to finish with over 15,000 yards receiving and 120 touchdowns. He could have challenged Jerry Rice's numbers, but we'll never know. Since retiring, Calvin's focused on healing physically and mentally. He's now an advocate for cannabis use and pain management and is building a business around it. He's also made it clear that $1.6 million wasn't just about the money, but a sign of respect. Calvin Johnson gave everything to football, and in return, he got pain, silence, and a bill. But for fans, he'll always be Megatron, the one Detroit didn't deserve. So was Calvin Johnson the best wide receiver of his era? Let me know in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing.